Sammy, first off, happy Passover.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You celebrate yourself?
I saw your Twitter post where you wish people a happy Passover. So I said either he's observant or that's a good business move or both. In my case, my family doesn't do the Seder on night one. They just go, when's everyone available? And not
Oh.
everyone was available yesterday. What about yourself?
Yeah, we have a Seder. We had one yesterday. We've got one tomorrow. So
Wow.
it's I mean it's believe me, we do sort of the minimum in terms of being observant, but it's one of those things. I've got three kids, so we do it for them more or less. So, but
Hey, you're keeping it alive, and it's not just the comedy that keeps the Judaism alive. It's the holiday and the culture. So good on you. But hey, we were not sent to talk about Passover. We were set up to talk about Silent Radar and the reissue. And the first question I have about that is how easy was it to find all the outtakes and the live show soundboard and all that goes into this deluxe edition?
mhm. Well, it wasn't that hard to find. Have you heard any of the stuff yet, Darren? By the way,
Yes, I've had
yeah.
the pleasure. You have a great band. Despite me being an ignorant American, I am familiar with your band.
Okay, where are you from? I'm not
New
even.
York?
Okay. Well, we were always pretty consistent with comprehensive demoing for
Oh,
all our records. Silent Radar was no exception. And what sort of to answer your question, the answer is simply is yes. But I'm going to drop a name right now. I was recently listening to. It must have been about 6 months ago now. I stumbled onto some Danko Jones albums.
sure.
Shout out to Danko Jones, Canadian sort of hard rock
Oh,
performer.
I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a few times. And what I've learned about Danko is he is shy until you mention Van Halen or Kiss. Then he becomes your best friend.
Yeah, he's a serious music guy, and I've got a lot of respect for Danko. He's never been sort of a hero in his home country, relatively speaking. But my point is that he's had a number of his records recorded by a guy called Matt DiMatteo. And Matt did the demos for Silent Radar that, in my mind, could have been Silent Radar. We were very, very well rehearsed,
Mm-hmm.
and we recorded pretty much, I think, every track that ended up on the final album, Stereo, Any Day,
Mm-hmm.
some of the deeper tracks. And this was maybe 6 months before we went into the studio for Radar. And what sort of inspired me personally to go back and dig through our vaults, so to speak, was listening to some Danko records and remembering, hey, we did some really, really killer demos with Matt DiMatteo. So I went back, and I always knew in the back of my mind how great they were. I spoke to Warren Stewart at Universal, who is part of their catalog department, and he digitized the stuff for me, and I wasn't at all surprised when I was just blown away by how good these
Mm-hmm.
demos sounded, and that really was the catalyst for trying to put together a comprehensive sort of snapshot of everything and anything that went into Silent Radar. So along with those demos, we've got what we're calling the kind of a raw version of the album, which is for all intents and purposes the album but unmixed.
Right.
You probably know, Darren, when you record an album, you over record with.
You overproduce it or you record another 8 songs for Japanese B-sides or etc. Yeah.
Yeah, that you certainly record more songs if you're able than you need. And in our case, that's true. We have a track called "I'm Blind" that's on there
Mm-hmm.
that was for a Japanese release. But what I was referring to was tracks, so multiple guitar tracks, multiple
Oh,
vocal tracks, percussion, even multiple drum tracks in some cases. You over record, and then you get to the mixing stage, and
right.
then you mix it all together, and you spend a couple of weeks making sure everything sounds right. Fans will now have an opportunity to listen to the unmixed version with all that over recorded stuff. And it's a really, really interesting listening experience for people who are familiar with these tracks. So that's a big part of what this deluxe edition incorporates. And last point before I shut up here is March 30th, 2023 was the 25th anniversary of the release date. So we're right on the money in terms of the history of the project as well, 25 years ago. So
when you're talking about overproduction, I mean, that's what you did is nothing compared to what Mutt Lange was doing, where supposedly every guitar string was its own track and every drum was its own track. So don't feel bad about overproduction.
honestly, like, just so I'm clear, I mean, first of all, make no mistake, we did what was antithetical to that.
Yeah.
We did not overproduce this record. These are 1-2 take versions. Like I said, we were very, very well rehearsed. And when I say over recorded, I'm talking about extra tracks and stuff. We weren't the Mutt Lange level.
I mean, much respect to Mutt Lange, but overkill is overkill. But hey, enough about Mutt Lange and back to you here. You did this record with Adam Kasper before he became the Foo Fighters' right-hand man for a couple of years. Any chance Dave Grohl went, hey, we want to record because of Silent Radar?
Unequivocally, no. I don't think he had heard our record. One thing that I will say, I'm remembering around the time that we recorded it, I remember the drummer for Soundgarden was sort of hanging around the studio quite a bit because we recorded it at a place called Studio Litho, that owned by Stone Gossard, Pearl Jam guitar player.
Oh, yeah. Johnny Polanski's current label executive, Stone Gossard.
Okay. All right. I didn't know that, but I used to dig into the basement. They had great sort of vaults of old reel-to-reel of 2-inch tape. And there was like master recordings of some of their records. It was pretty mind-blowing. But I think what really inspired us at that time was that Adam did a record called Down on the Upside by Soundgarden.
Great album, stands the test of time. Love that record.
Yeah, and that one to me, I personally love the production. I love the rawness of it and the drum sounds, and to me, it was quite a marvel when I thought back at okay, we're recording with a guy who did this album. We're doing it in the same studio he recorded Down on the Upside. I'm working with the same drum technician helping me tune my drums.
Really?
Greg Keplinger was his name. He was sort of my drum tech on the record. So it was kind of like one of those pinch me moments of everything really coming together for the band at that time. And of course, that's a part of this release as well. We've done a slight tweak to the original recording. It's not a full remaster. I should make it clear. When you've got Adam Kasper recording you and Bob Ludwig mastering your record, there's not a remaster that's needed. But we recorded that album and it was released at a time when CDs were really the thing. Now that it's on iTunes, we did a little bit of tweaking to make it sort of a little bit more iTunes friendly. It's 46 tracks in all. It's everything but the kitchen sink in terms of anybody who's a fan of this record. So it's all out there right now.
Should we be expecting other deluxe releases from your band in the future?
Nothing planned. We did a reissue of our second album, In the Trees, several years ago now. The vaults are getting a little drier these days, Darren, to tell you the truth. Radar was really the one where we had sort of lots of stuff kicking around that was worthy of seeing the light of day. Not the least of which is, again, those demos that we did with Matt, because at the time, I personally felt like Matt was really the linchpin to in terms of us gaining interest from American producers like Adam Kasper, because we had done this very, very professional recording, and the label at the time was still sort of investing us and offering different producers different kinds of money. We went through probably about 5 or 6 different very, very well-known producers at the time. It was such a different world back then. You seem like you're kind of my vintage. That was when records were sold in record stores.
Right. Well, who would have thought that being on MCA and EMI, they'd both wind up under the same umbrella all those years later?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. We're down to like 3 labels or something. But at the time, we were I would say honeymooning with EMI to a certain extent. It was the first album we were doing with them. It was our fourth album, but they were sending this demo that we did with Matt to a lot of great producers. We had meetings with all of them, and these guys, I remember just sort of having my mind blown. It was Tim Palmer on one day, who worked with U2 and Tears for Fears and the Tin Machine. And then another day we'd be speaking to a gentleman who works out of Memphis. What's his name again?
Jim Dickinson.
Yes, Dickinson. Yes, he produced.
Isn't it a shame I knew that?
Well, no, I appreciate that. Jim Dickinson, he worked with like the Replacements.
Yeah.
We met with a guy named Nick Didia, who also produced a lot of Pearl Jam. So all of a sudden, and I'm probably thinking in hindsight, maybe the label sort of upped their producer budget a little bit. Maybe that's why our calls were getting answered. But that in tandem with this great tape, suddenly we were sort of cherry picking over who we wanted to work with, which is not always the case. And I often wonder, what if we did this record with Tim Palmer? I wonder what it would sound like, because he's a Grammy Award-winning, incredible producer in his own right. So It was a very, very exciting time for the band.
Last question before I let you go. Ignorant American question in closing here. As a person who does travel writing, I'm being brought up to the Harvest Music Festival in Fredericton and to St. John in New Brunswick in September. Any recommendations of things that we should see in Fredericton or St. John? I'd have to assume you played the Harvest Music Festival at least twice.
We're playing in St. John's, Newfoundland in June, as it happens. I don't know Eastern Canada that well, Darren, to tell you the truth. I really don't. I just know that when we would go there when I was younger, I would typically be drunk for a week when I was there, and it was sort of encouraged to do that. So you'll have a lot of fun. Who's headlining the festival this year?
That is being announced next week. We don't know yet. But you've played Harvest Music Festival?
Honestly, I'm not sure, to be honest. We might have. I mean,
so many gigs for so many years. I get it.
Yeah, I don't know. We played in St. John's, we played Fredericton, we played all over Eastern Canada. But this summer we're playing in Winnipeg, Toronto, Edmonton, St. John's, a couple of other things. And I would want to add that April 14th is when the deluxe edition is going to be available on all streaming services. So definitely follow us on our social media for sort of a little bit of teasers we're putting up between now and the 14th. And we're very excited for our fans to hear this stuff.
We'll put that all in the copy, but the next time I speak with you, I hope that you've earned the Order of the Buffalo honor from the city of Winnipeg, because, hey, that is what they give the most honored people. Even if you're an Ontario guy these days, you deserve those honors there, Sammy.
Winnipeg will always be, or Watchmen will always be a Winnipeg band, but, that sounds great. Thank you.